Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. As painful and difficult as it is to face an unwanted estrangement from your adult child or children, the situation can be made even worse by what your brain does automatically to cope with it. In previous episodes, I've described 3 types of cognitive distortions or thinking errors that commonly cause trouble, even in people who aren't experiencing estrangement. Cognitive distortions are not related to intelligence or conscientiousness or character or even mental health. They're just tendencies of the human brain, especially when we're exposed to adverse circumstances. In episode 160, I explained how the thinking error of emotional reasoning can add to your suffering in estrangement, and in episode 162, it was overgeneralizing and catastrophizing. You can find those episodes at reconnectionclub.com/160 and 162. Today's episode is about another cognitive distortion known as all or nothing, black and white, or polarized thinking. In short, it's the brain's insistence on reducing reality to a choice between 2 extremes. It's a little bit like going to a 31 flavors ice cream place where 15 of the flavors are chocolate and the other 16 are vanilla. And you can only have one. There's no mixing. That's black and white thinking. For parents estranged from their adult children, this kind of either-or thinking shows up in many different ways. But here's one example. Either my adult child loves me and will come back soon, or hates me and I'll never see them again. The main assumption here is that the only motive for seeking distance is a lack of love. And we know from research this is simply not true. There are many, many estranged adult children who do love the parents they're estranged from. So whether your child loves you is separate from the question of why they're currently estranged. There can be reasons for estrangement that have nothing to do with whether or how much they love you. Here's another example of black and white thinking. Either I was a bad parent, or my adult child is a bad person for doing this. Here the assumption is that one of you has to be the hero of the story and the other the villain. I explored this problematic assumption in episode 117, Heroes and Villains, so if you find yourself flipping back and forth between I'm bad and they're bad, listen to that episode at reconnectionclub.com/117. This next example of black and white thinking seems pretty pervasive to me, but I don't think it's always conscious. It happens with parents who are working on apologies to their adult children. They often seem to harbor the following belief. This apology I'm sending will either open the door to contact or have no impact whatsoever. That's another false dichotomy. Probably the most common response to any apology during estrangement is continuing silence, and a door that stays closed for a while. But silence doesn't always mean the apology wasn't read, appreciated, and even accepted. Good apologies can have beneficial effects without the door opening just yet. Timing often supersedes other factors when it comes to reconciliation. So if you want to write an apology, and not every parent needs to, take your time. View it as a gift with no hope whatsoever of return. Send the apology from your heart if you're ready, but expect the door to stay closed for a while. If it doesn't, you'll be pleasantly and genuinely surprised. We have lots of material on apologizing in the Reconnection Club, and anyone can listen to episode 176 regarding apologies at reconnectionclub.com/176. Most problems in life are not black and white. Here's an example. If a small fire starts in your living room and you happen to be holding a bucket of water, what should you do? Should you stand there and let the fire grow? or should you use the water to put it out? Well, that may seem straightforward, but what if it's a plugged-in computer or television that's on fire? What if the fire is in your fireplace? Depending on the circumstances, water is not always the right call to deal with a fire in your living room. So even that is not an either-or proposition. Life is rarely that simple because so much depends on context, and that is very often overlooked by parents who are in pain. For more on the crucial role that context plays in relationships and estrangement, listen to episode 154, Nothing Happens in a Vacuum, at reconnectionclub.com/154. Whenever you catch yourself thinking that the story must be either this or that, always challenge your brain to come up with other possibilities that may exist in the gulf between them. Let me review those examples of black and white thinking errors. Either my adult child loves me and will come back, or hates me and I'll never see them again. Either I was a bad parent, or my adult child is being bad now. This apology I'm sending will either open the door or have zero impact. And here are 3 more black and white thoughts for you to challenge if they arise. Number 1. Either my child's mental illness is causing this estrangement, or they don't have a mental illness at all. The reality is, it is possible to have a mental illness and also have interpersonal reasons for estrangement. Number 2. My estranged adult child either wants contact or they don't. Your child's desire or tolerance for contact may ebb and flow. The less anxious you are about that, the better. But if you find this back and forth difficult to tolerate without resentment, despair, or anguish, it may be that some of your most important emotional needs are not being met, and that would be a good reason to begin or deepen therapy with a compassionate, feelings-friendly therapist. And lastly, either my child will come back and I'll feel better, or they'll stay away and I'll continue to feel the way I do today. If your child comes back into your life spontaneously, which does happen, you still might not be happy. And if they continue to keep their distance, then your ability to tolerate the intolerable, which you're already doing right now, can improve over time. I've met reconciled parents who are in contact and miserable, as well as long estranged parents finding new purpose and joy in their lives. So regardless of what tomorrow may bring, remember the situation is probably not black and white. The idea that this estrangement must be either this or that is too simplistic to be true. It's realistic to assume there are more possibilities than meet the eye. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So please take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out ReconnectionClub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at ReconnectionClub.com.